G'day, it's Heath here from pickinglessons.com. The Ash Grove is a very pretty tune in waltz time. In this mandolin arrangement, we're going to take a look at a chord melody version of the tune. So basically we're bringing in the accompaniment to the melody all on the mandolin. So we're using double stops, 3-note chords and 4-note chords to support the melody. In a moment, we're going to take a look at part A of the arrangement here in this lesson, but if you head over to pickinglessons.com, you better get yourself a copy of the tablature that we're working from. Now that includes your left hand positions, all your fingering, and a guide for your right hand as well. You'll also find part 2 of this lesson where we break down part B, and you'll also find a backing track and a play along track. So once you get to know this tune, you can use those to help you practice along. So pickinglessons.com. Okay, let's start out with a slow playthrough of part A, and then we'll break down some of the hand positions and look at some exercises that are going to help to learn this particular arrangement of the Ash Grove. Part A, once through. 1, 2, and 3, and... Okay, so there's part A of this arrangement of the Ash Grove. Now, this is quite a challenging arrangement, so pretty tough for your left hand at times. So let's break down some of these chord shapes and have a look at what we're trying to get our fingers to do. Part A starts off with this pickup note on beat 3. So we are in waltz time, 3/4 time. 1, 2, 3 is our pickup note. First chord position. We're in the key of D. First chord up is a D there with the high melody note on top. So the melody for the first measure actually, to beat 1 of measure 2. Now with the chords supporting. So you can hear we're bringing the chords into the melody. So the basic melody for the first 4 measures, but with the chordal accompaniment. And you can hear we're supporting the melody there with the harmony from the chords. Sometimes they're a chord you may recognize, other times it's an inversion of a particular chord so we can grab our notes more conveniently. So that first chordal position there is basically a D chord you might already know. First finger, third finger, and fourth finger on those notes, second, fourth, and fifth. Now the melody's always on top. So it's that last note on top. So as you strum through, really make sure you catch that note strongly. Don't just sort of scoop away your strum so that in this case second string is not strong. So really make sure you follow through there. And what I'm tending to do to get that stronger is make sure I finish that last stroke kind of as a rest stroke, and I'm coming into that first string in this example. So as I brush across the strings for the chord, my last string that I'm playing, string 2, the pick comes in to string 1. That helps kind of bring the melody note up a little bit more. So keep that in mind, the melody is always on top, the last note of the chord. So as we change hand positions here, hold the notes as long as you can, but it's not always convenient to do that. So we're holding notes and chords as long as we can, let it ring throughout, but there are times where you change hand position. This is one of those times. Our first finger is going to take over, little finger on the next chord, it's an easy one. With open strings, upstroke on that second finger in preparation for our next chord in measure 2. This is one of the harder chords. First finger's got to bar itself over fret 2 there on strings 1 and 2, and third finger on fret 4 of string 4, open D string. Little finger comes in next while you're holding our chord, and then the next chord is the partial chord there, those 3 notes, melody note on top. These are not easy chord positions. First chord, that's not too bad. Barring, getting rid of the bar there. Hold your chords as long as you can, find those hand positions. Thumb needs to be quite sort of strong there behind the neck to really hold these bar positions over this mandolin neck. So take your time with it. The hard thing is that you'll find your hand getting tired as we're learning this tune. Going slow, you're going to be working harder. As you get to know the tune and are able to play it a little bit quicker, you'll bounce off these chords a little sooner. Your hand's not working quite as hard. But unfortunately, learning a song, you're going to have to start slower. Chunk it up into smaller parts because that's going to make it easier, particularly on your left hand. Let's move on though. So do keep an eye on the fingering in the tablature. Now the next chord we're moving up to in fret in measure 3 is an E minor shape here. So what's that? 4, 5, and 7. First, second, and fourth finger. Then we change position. So it's one of those times you can't hold your chord. To cover our next part of the melody, we need to shift our hand. Moving into the quick passing chord into measure 4. This particular chord here, we're borrowing first finger over fret 4, string 3, second finger on string 2. Melody note. Moving on to borrowing on fret 2 here this time, same 2 strings, 3 and 4, plus third finger for the melody note on fret 4. Take that off, open string. Here's an inversion of the A chord you may already know. 6th fret, 2nd fret, open A string. A is our melody note. Measure 3, measure 4. And you may have noticed every chord we're playing with a downstroke, so we can really emphasize that melody note in our last follow through of the chord. So in this last case here on that inversion of the A, we're hearing that down strum there on the open A string. If you're playing a melody, it's just a straight melody note with no chord attached to it, we can use our picking like a down up over 8th notes, and you may have noticed that, but that is marked in the tablature. But particularly the chords, always a down strum. That will help strengthen that melody note, which is the highest note, the last note we will play. Now, moving on to measure 5, we've got this same chord as we began with. Changing hand position. Now a variation here. Upstroke on the melody there. So we've got our 2nd fret covered with first finger, little finger on fret 5. Down strum, catching that melody note. And then an up pick stroke there for the melody on fret 4. So that's a good example where we will play an upstroke. We've got a single melody note next. 3 and measure 6 with the G chord. 1, 2, 3. First finger holding that 2nd fret there the entire time. Open strings, inversion of the G chord here for the melody. 4th fret, 5th fret, 2nd and 3rd fingers. Any particular bar you might be having trouble with, break it down and practice it separately. This one is pretty easy, but for example, you could just work on this, work on your fingering. First finger, 2nd and 3rd fingers, first finger. If you're having trouble with the pick, hitting different strings, really take your time and watch that you do follow through. You're kind of brushing, but if you come into that string that you're not playing, in this example there, string 1, I'm kind of landing on string 1. And stopping my pick from following through. Same there on the next chord. I'm actually landing on string 2 once I've finished with string 3, which is our melody note. It's strengthening the note because I'm kind of playing a rest stroke movement coming into the strings, but I'm also not playing a string that I don't want, the next note in the chord. So if you are having trouble with that right hand, this actually is a good exercise here, this 6th bar in over the G chord. Okay, moving on to measure 7. And we'll close that out with measure 8 there before the pickup note on our repeat. And the second ending is different. We're going to look at that though in the next lesson. So moving back to measure 7, we have this partial D chord finishing on the A note for our melody. Variation on the D chord, same chord as the beginning. Again, melody note and string 2. Inversion of the A chord to catch the C sharp. 3rd, 1st and 2nd fingers. First finger, 1st, 3rd and 4th. Inversion of the A, 3rd, 1st and 2nd. Melodies all on string 2. And then D up the neck there, 7, 4 and 5. Melody on string 2 again. holding those chords as long as you can, but also you need to bounce those fingers pretty quickly to change positions. Okay, so there's part 8. Not the easiest of tunes to play with all these chords supporting the melody, but it's great fun. This would stand alone on its own. We did hear it with the guitar in the preview, but it would stand alone on its own. Now work on getting your fingers down for each of those chords because that's really important. Any of these particular chords you're having trouble with, work on it separately. As I mentioned, while you're practicing and learning it slower, your left hand may start to get tired, but give yourself a few days of practicing it and getting to know it. It will hopefully start to get a little easier and your hand will start to build a little strength around these chord shapes as they become more familiar. And also one reminder too about that pick. So we're going across our chord when we play a chord and coming in on the melody note right at the end there. So we're stopping if we're on string 2 melody, for example, coming in on string 2 there to strengthen that at the end. So that's worth practicing as well. Really dragging that pick through, working on the melody note being strong as we play through. Okay, when you're ready, jump over to pickandlessons.com. We will jump into part B of this lesson and you'll find yourself a copy of the tab there as well. In the members section, you'll also find the play along and backing tracks. So once you do get to know the tune, download those tracks, slow them down and start to practice along with them. pickandlessons.com. I'll see you there.